Last time on Video Game Hangover.
Okay, back to your analog sticks, Randy. Sorry about that.
And now, the exciting conclusion.
Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. This is episode 3. Our impressive run of shows continues.
Yeah.
I'm What?
I said, yeah.
Yeah. I'm Anderson Cooper, and stop punching me in the head.
Oh, okay. Apparently.
Actually, it's too soon. Sorry. Not soon enough. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Poughkeepsie, New York.
I'm Richard Wolfson, and I'm coming to you from Mountain View, California. Oh, sorry.
Richard Wolfson.
DJ Ross. Yeah.
I like Richard Wolfson. He's a cool guy. Howdy, howdy, howdy. I am Paul Sandu, and I am in Dallas, Texas. And once again, I just want to thank all of our listeners for their support and feedback. We still have a rather small audience, but with your support, I know we are going to grow into a living, breathing, massive goo. Or something or other. I don't know.
It's not the size of your audience, it's what you do with it.
What are you doing with our audience?
I don't really have an answer to that.
Can't talk about it, huh? Before we get started, though, we want to mention that Randy last week won a certain contest that was happening on the internet. You may have heard of it.
Woo.
By Volition, the developers of our much beloved Red Faction series.
Yay!
So, Randy, you want to tell us what's up?
Yeah, I don't know a ton, but I mean, so the background is Volition, the makers of Red Faction and the Saints Row games, had a contest on their community site. They were giving away 4 trips to Champaign, Illinois to visit Volition headquarters and meet the Volition crew and check out Red Faction Armageddon, which doesn't come out until May. So I'll get to see it probably, 2 or 3 months? What day is it? What year is this? I'll get to see
1995.
it for 3 or 4 years before it comes out.
You're thinking of the Guillermo del Toro game.
Yeah,
That's
right.
not
Yeah,
out until like 2050.
Right, which Volition is also making. I think it's called Insane, right? So yeah, that's my great hope. Obviously, is to get to see something about Insane. That would be excellent, or maybe see some Saints Row 3.
I'm thinking there are some pretty sweet posters of the logo.
Right, teasers. I've been promised limited edition swag. I don't know what that means, but I'm all about the swag. And there's they promised, well, didn't promise, but there was a suggestion that perhaps my name would be in the credits of the game.
Ooh. Maybe,
which I think is freaking awesome.
Do you think that limited edition swag might be like Red Faction erotic art or something?
I have to fly back to
good.
Poughkeepsie with a giant sledgehammer from Red Faction. No, I have no idea. I don't know. It seems unlikely that it's erotic art.
Giant sledgehammer sounds pretty erotic to me.
A velvet painting of the lead character from Red Faction Armageddon. I have no idea. I do know that I have a non-disclosure agreement, so this may be the last I'll be able to say about this trip.
No,
until it happens. But once I get back, whatever I can share, I will. They promised that at some point they would sort of lift the veil and allow us to speak to gaming communities about our experience and stuff. So when I can talk about it, I will.
Well, congratulations, Randy. I think that's bloody amazing.
That is awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it
I
is.
am kind of beside myself. I found out last Monday, and I was like, should I pack now? The trip is still not for 2 weeks, but I was ready to go 5 days ago. But yeah, no, I want to sort of give a shout out to Jay Goldberg. He's the community manager from Volition. He's a super nice guy. He's on the Twitters and the Facebooks. And I think he's good people. He does a good job over there. So I'm looking forward to meeting him as well.
What's his Twitter name? One letter?
One letter, ONE_LETTER.
So follow that guy because he's badass.
Yeah, he's good people. Well, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. That was very nice.
We're just so happy for you.
I am.
And jealous.
Right, exactly. I'm like, it's funny how you wear your happiness. So on this week's show, we'll be stepping into the Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
Further back for some of us, as we reflect on the games, consoles, people, and events that made us the gamers that we are today. DJ Paul and I know that sort of so far we've never really taken a lot of time out of a show to introduce ourselves. So this would be kind of a fun way to do that. But first, Paul has been trolling the internet looking for people who have had nice things to say about us.
That's not all I troll the internet for.
Well, it's a family show.
Okay, well, yahoo!
Right.
More feedback, make Paul happy. Oh, very happy to see all this feedback here. So, this week we were asking a lot of our listeners to send in or tweet us what games they were looking forward to the most in 2011. So, without further ado, let us commence. So, on Twitter, Stranded Brit says that he is looking forward to Valkyria Chronicles 3 if it makes it to North America this year. Now, as far as I know, there is a PSP sequel to the original for the PS3. Yes? No?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Valkyria 2 is a PSP game.
Was
yeah.
it like a side story or an actual sequel? I do not know.
I'm pretty sure it's
I'm
a
not
sequel.
the authority on any of this.
That, folks, is the sound of us not knowing at all.
Right. I know people
What,
like.
what was the
game.
question?
What? Never
Um,
mind.
No, the Valkyria games I know sort of are quite acclaimed, and they have a pretty significant following on the PS3 and PSP. But it's not one that I've ever ventured into.
And,
I'm a big fan of the first one. I just haven't gotten around to checking out the second one so far. I don't know.
So if the third one does indeed make it out this year, you're going to be behind the eight ball, my friend.
I know. Well, I mean, it's a good thing there are no other games coming out this year. I'll have some
That's
time.
right. After this
Clear.
month, there's nothing left.
The schedule is clear, exactly.
And Mr. Standard Brit...
Valkyria
sorry, go
Chronicles
ahead.
4 coming out this December 17th. It's going to be a DS exclusive.
Oh, world exclusive news here on the Video Game Hangover.
You heard it here first, folks.
But sorry,
DJ
you were saying?
Ross. Well, I was just saying that he's also looking forward to White Knight Chronicles Part 2. I don't know if that's going to be coming out here, but apparently another Twitter user by the name of KingDD83 is looking forward to White Knight Chronicles 2 if it comes out this year here in North America. Now, I know a sequel has been confirmed for the game, but we really don't know when the hell it's coming out here.
I don't know if that's been confirmed for a US release even, but I could be mistaken.
Right. Yeah. With those JRPGs, it's kind of touch and go sometimes, but here's hoping, keeping my fingers crossed that the sequel is coming out because these people want it, and I want them to have it. Yet another Twitter user, Cube00, says that he was looking forward to Deus Ex, but instead he will take Duke Nukem Forever. And he didn't really clarify what he meant, but I'll take him at his word for that.
He was looking forward to Deus Ex. Why is he not looking forward to it anymore?
Mr. Cube, if you
It's a
can just
mystery.
tweet us or email us, we'd like to know why you were looking forward to Deus Ex, but apparently no longer.
I want to play that game. I think it looks cool.
It looks pretty awesome. I loved the first one, did not really like the sequel, but this one might bring it back.
Never played the first one. I liked the sequel. But
That's because you didn't.
everything
That's because you didn't play the
It's
first.
because I didn't play the first one, exactly. But no, this new one looks pretty fantastic. There was actually sort of like the first story trailer that really sort of gave you some sort of information on what the hell's going on that came out about a week and a half ago, and it looked really excellent.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for the Blade Runner-esque cyberpunk type of setting that this seems to be going with, so
Oh, totally.
sign me up! Yeah!
And any video game where you have a cool little feature where you can punch through a brick wall, I'm in.
Yeah, I think I can get behind that.
Yeah, right.
And this week's winner for most awesomest listener feedbacker goes to a Mr. Freaky Zeke, also from Twitter. At first, he tweeted us saying he's looking for the HD Ico collection, which I'm sure all three of us are going to be looking forward to. Yes? I think so.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
I've actually, that's Ico in Shadow of the Colossus. And
Yes, sir.
I believe I've actually played Shadow of the Colossus, which I don't think... Did either of you guys play that?
Oh yeah. That was
Yeah, okay.
my game of the year whenever that came out.
Oh, I'm misremembering a conversation, but I've never played Ico, or Eco, or whatever it's called. But I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out.
I think I'm looking forward to that more than the Last Guardian, which is also rumored to come out this year as the sequel to, or the third in the spiritual trilogy. Anyway.
Yeah, nothing about the Last Guardian sort of trailers or any of the press has been exciting to me. So I'm definitely more interested in Eco than Last Guardian.
And I'm sure it'll be great considering the team's track record.
The pedigree, exactly. Yeah.
But man, I want to play Shadow of the Colossus again.
If you want more information on those games, just listen to Video Game Hangover episode, 2? Yes, we talk about those in that.
I believe so.
Right, briefly.
But Freaky also says the HD collections are the bomb.
Yeah,
and,
that's a good reason.
I agree. I think that's a very cool thing. And yeah, it sucks to buy games over and over and over again, but it's given me an opportunity to play a lot of the games that I missed during the sort of the rise of the PS2 era. So for my money anyways, I think they're quite excellent.
And of course, he sent a follow-up tweet to let us know he's also looking forward to Elder Scrolls 50 or whatever, 5. I'm not really sure what number it's up to. But I'm pretty sure Patrick Stewart will not be in it. But he's looking forward to Elder Scrolls, what is it, Skyrim?
Skyrim? I believe it was 5.
I think it's number 5. Yes, somehow they made it to number 5.
All I know is they released a trailer for it last week, and it had some dude in a gaming chair with a boner, and I was immediately 97% less interested in playing that game.
I'm now 97% more interested.
Is that in the game? Because I'm having a hard time imagining that in sort of the medieval fantasy setting.
You get +1 something with your game boner.
Well, if it's not in there, people will mod it in. Don't worry.
Right. Sure. It's DLC. You've got to pay for the game boner. It's $5. It's on the disc, but you got to download a code to unlock it.
Oh, Randy, you need to see some of the horribly raunchy mods that have been released for Elder Scrolls 4. It'll blow
You really
your mind.
don't need to see them. I mean,
yes,
you
do.
Missing out.
If you want to see big boners, I will show you big boners.
If you want to see big boners, Paul's your man.
Wow, it's like the 8th time I've heard that today.
What are you doing right?
I spent the day at the Poughkeepsie Galleria.
All right, before this goes further down the toilet, Mr. Freaky Zeke is looking forward to this game because he wants to see what Bethesda can do with their winning formula, a variety of quests, locations, and storytelling, and I think that's excellent. That game, I may check it out, but we shall see if it has boner mods.
And just so we don't get angry emails, the word I believe you're looking for is Bethesda.
Oh, Bethesda. Okay.
Say it with me. Bethesda.
Bethesda.
Good job. I know you're Canadian, so words like that are hard, but we got to pull it together.
A lot of words are hard for us Canadians.
I don't think it has to do with the fact that he's Canadian.
Right. That's because he's drunk all the time. So before we get any further into whatever the hell is going on here, we want to take a few minutes at the beginning of the game and talk about beginning of the show and talk about some of the games we've been playing lately. Paul, you have given up on the Wii version of Animal Crossing and are trying to get your cute and fuzzy animal fix some other way.
Trying to get my poncho on in Animal Crossing Wild World for the DS. I will continue to search for poncho, and I have also been playing StarCraft 2, and I am not going to be getting into that.
Doesn't want to talk about it.
Nope. You know we're doing a show here, right?
Okay, it's a great shame. I put too much time into it, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome.
This episode 3, the antisocial episode.
Right. Episode 3. That's it. That's all we got.
What? I play it too much. I'm embarrassed. What do you want me to say? I love the game. I put in like 8-hour shifts. Oh my god. It's a fucking joke.
Oh my god.
Okay, see? No more foot and mouth. I'm done. Yes, StarCraft 2 and Poncho the Search.
The search for Poncho.
Speaking of video game addictions, DJ.
Well, it's not Dragon Quest IX.
Progress.
It just happens that it seems like every 4 or 5 months I get back into Monster Hunter Freedom Unite on the PSP because it's endless. It just never ends. So I was doing a little of that last week, most of last week. But it's good. I kind of like it. It compared to other games, the goals in it are fairly long term. Which could be good or bad, but so this last week I was hunting down this one boss, and there were several sort of sub goals leading up to that I was going after first, and I was like, well, in order to beat this boss, I should build this armor that that specifically protect me from this boss. But in order to do that, I need to build this sword and kill this other boss. So I did that. So I went through and I got my sword. I got my armor, and I was feeling pretty good, feeling accomplished. And then I went and fought the boss, and he just wiped the floor with me immediately. So it was kind of a downer, but I'll go back.
Did he kill you because you suck or because your weapons and equipment suck?
Well, I had never even seen this guy before, so he was.
You gotta tell your
I can only
cat to
blame
help you
myself. Dude, my cat killed me last week. He's fired.
Damn you, kitty.
I put him on permanent kitchen duty,
Awesome.
which is a real thing. If you've never
And
played
Randy is
Monster
wondering what the freaking hell we're talking about.
I'm trying really hard to think of something funny to interject, but all I
It's
think is just mean, nasty shit. That's all I got.
He's
So-
like, cats in a kitchen?
I
I'm
don't
done.
know. I don't know what's going on here. Who are you people?
Okay, well, that's enough of that. Randy, what have you been up to?
So, two games I've sort of been bouncing back and forth between for the last week and a half or so. Dead Space 2, which perhaps you've heard of.
Nope.
Sequel to Dead Space. It's good. It's a horror shooter. I guess survival horror. Although I'm never really certain what that sort of description means. But it's excellent. It's a lot more of the same. So if you sort of enjoyed Dead Space 1, you will enjoy Dead Space 2. I have sort of in my brain come up with a sort of Alien to Aliens kind of comparison between Dead Space and Dead Space 2.
Oh man, does it have Michael Biehn and Bill Paxton in it?
It does. Game over. No, it does not. I think Dead Space 1, much like Alien, is very much sort of a horror story. It's scary and creepy and dark and kind of lonely and genuinely sort of terrifying. I think the first Alien is the only pure horror movie of the series, and it is by far the scariest, I think, of all of them. You guys may disagree. I know DJ has sort of strongly held opinions about
some
Alien
people
movies.
think Resurrection's kind of scary, but
for
not
other
on
reasons.
the same level as Alien.
Can I admit something to you guys real quick?
What?
And it's one of my great sci-fi shames.
Oh, I know what this is.
Yeah. Don't even say it.
Okay. I don't need to say it. You know.
I mean,
I'm
you can
hanging
say
my
it. I
head.
just know it's going to be. So
I have
it's
not-
shameful.
I have never seen any of the Alien films.
None of them?
No.
Not
I
even
know.
Aliens versus Predator. That's a good one.
No. No.
Just to clarify for our listeners, that was a joke.
I'm made a point of never seeing that movie.
I'm just gonna go and cry in the corner over here while you talk more about aliens.
Okay, but so Dead Space 2, which is the current sort of Dead Space, is very comparable to Aliens, which is the second Alien movie, in that it's much sort of bigger and much more grandiose, and it's much more of a sort of a hoorah space marine alien sort of action movie. It's still scary. It still has creepy monsters and stuff like that, but it's much more sort of bigger and over the top in every way.
Is your character a bald space marine?
No.
Oh, nice.
No. He does, like, in the first Dead Space, he was silent. Like, he didn't say a word. You could hear him breathe, and you could hear him grunting when he would stomp on monsters and stuff like that. And in the second one, he talks. Like, they have sort of suddenly given Isaac Clarke a personality and a voice, and he interacts with people, and he meets up with sort of other players and stuff like that. And it's very much the sort of the same game, but in a very completely bigger way, with a much bigger narrative and much bigger sort of set pieces, where you get an escape pod and launch into space and careen around objects that are in your way and stuff. And like nothing sort of that big happened in the first Dead Space, which I liked about it, which I sort of appreciated how sort of lonely and creepy and quiet it was. And I like Dead Space 2, but it is a much, I keep saying this, bigger experience. It's definitely sort of been sequelized and commercialized, but that doesn't necessarily make it bad. I'm still having a really good time with it. I still can't wait to see how it ends. Yeah, it's not quite the same game, which is a good thing. I mean, you should not make the same thing over and over again.
His name's Isaac Clarke?
It's Isaac Clarke, yeah.
Oh, cool. I just looked it up, and it's a homage to Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, they're real subtle over at EA.
So the second game that I've been playing, and this was a sort of a $5 sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Quick buy? No, that's
Impulse
the thing.
buy.
Impulse buy. There you go. On Xbox Live Arcade, it's Hydrophobia.
I heard this is horrible.
Uh,
I heard like
no, it's sort of, I think.
I heard
and I
it-
didn't play it. Go ahead.
Well, no, I heard it was so bad that they released a patch that just gave it a complete overhaul. It's like a completely new game now. I don't know what your
Yeah.
experience is like.
I didn't play it before, so I don't know how shitty it was 6 months ago. But I don't mind it now. I mean, it's not great. It's very much a downloadable game in that it's not a giant experience. It's impressive how much of an experience it is for a downloadable game. You're on a city at sea, which is a giant ship. The world is overpopulated, and we have sort of taken to the waters.
Is Kevin Costner in it?
Kevin Costner is not. Dryland is not a myth. It is your giant ship. Your city at sea is attacked by terrorists, and you are you're a tech expert on the ship or something like that, and you're trying to piece together who the terrorists are and why. Characterization is kind of shoddy. The character models are kind of shoddy. The selling point of the game is this sort of water physics. As the ship fills with water, things start to float and objects kind of go by, and parts of the ship are underwater. And as you open pod doors, like water rushes through and stuff like that. So the physics of the water are awesome, and you can sort of set it up so that you have these chain reactions where you sort of float boxes of ammo or whatever down a hallway and blow them up and kill bad guys and stuff like that. So every sort of environment is kind of a trick to sort of use the water to your advantage or disadvantage. That stuff is really cool and really fun, but the game behind it is a little still kind of broken. I think if this were sort of like a $60, put it on a retail shelf, like really go to town with it and polish the hell out of it for a year and a half, it would be an amazing experience. And again, for $5, I've put 6 or 7 hours into it, and I'm having a great time with it. But it's still a tiny bit not great.
I was sort of following this leading up to release because like the water stuff sounded interesting, and then I just saw it got devastated in the reviews, so I kind of was like, ugh.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Based on your description, maybe I'll check it out.
For the price, yeah, give it a go. It's kind of fun. They really sort of strap you by not giving you, like in the first scene, not giving you a gun full of ammunition. And you basically have to be very resourceful with resources. And like I said, make the water and make sort of the things that are floating by and the objects that you can find work to your advantage in sort of destroying these terrorists and getting sort of an answer to why this is happening to your ship. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, for $5, I think it's a great experience. I've already sort of gotten my $5 worth easily.
I paid more than that for Modern Combat.
Well, there you go.
Whatever happened to that game?
What happened to that game? I don't know.
It's terribly exciting to you guys for about 8 minutes.
That game it turned out exactly how it met my expectations exactly. I'm satisfied.
Are you happy that you purchased it?
I'm happy. I'm did not surprise me. I knew what I was getting into, and played out exactly as I saw it in my mind.
Excellent. That's wonderful.
10 minutes of excitement for a 2-second purchase and then never to be revisited again.
Well, DJ, you are the clairvoyant one out of the three of us, so I'm glad that you were able to foresee the game played out exactly as you imagined it.
Oh yeah, no, it was no surprises whatsoever.
Not for you.
So on to this week's big conversation then? Or do we want to sort of make fun of DJ's game selections again some more?
Well, hey, I like that game too. I'm not making fun of it.
This is the punchy,
Says the
punchy
guy
episode
who's
of
played
VGH.
it less than I have.
Right.
I love that game that I've never played.
Well, I played it for like 2 or 3 hours. That constitutes... Okay, anyway, yeah, the big conversation.
Yeah.
Onward to the big conversation. So since I've been informed that I'm the elder statesman here at Video Game Hangover, apparently I get to go first.
Are you and Martha still together?
No, that was just a fling. That was kind of a weekend thing.
Sounds like a hell of a fling.
There was some innocent groping, but
oh,
did you see any ankle?
Martha was rocking the cankles. Let me tell you. Well, it was a different time. Women were chubbier then. It was very. That's all I got.
If you're confused by any of this, you should go back and listen to our second episode, though.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
It may explain a little of it, but we can't promise too much. But anyway,
this is Video Game Hangover mythology here. This is. You pay attention to the details.
There's an arc in our show, so you have to start from episode 0 all the way to today, and you'll get everything.
So we want to talk about our gaming histories. The the games, the consoles, the people, the events that made us the gamer we are.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go way back to 1983, I think my first gaming experience that I can remember, anyways, was playing Donkey Kong on a ColecoVision. We had I lived in an apartment complex, and I used to walk to school with a neighbor from a couple of doors down, and she had a Coleco, and I would get to her house at 30 minutes before we would have to leave, and she would of course not be ready for school, and that gave me the perfect excuse to play Coleco while she got ready. So yeah, I remember sort of obsessively spending my mornings playing Donkey Kong, and being rather blown away by the amazing technology on display there.
You were just completely enthralled by the blinking colors.
Right. And I was by no means the king of Kong. I considered it a massive accomplishment after months of doing this that I could get to the top level of the girders in the first screen on Donkey Kong. And by the time I got to the second screen with the elevators, I was completely lost, and there was no hope of ever being able to do any of that. It just looked so impossible and alien to me that there was no way it was going to happen.
Donkey Kong is great. It's just because it's one of those old games that just is deceptively difficult. Because you see it and you're like, I can do this.
Oh, sure.
Like,
Just jumping over barrels.
All these barrels are hitting me in the face. There's fire.
There was a lot of fire. Yeah, it was brutal.
Randy, it's funny because that's when I actually started gaming too, in 1983. Huh? And my first game was Pac-Man. It's funny because my parents, they owned an arcade, so they got me hooked real young. Get them while they're young. That's what my parents did with me, man. They gave me a nice little milk crate to stand on because I couldn't reach the joysticks. I actually do have kind of a history with milk crates. You have to ask me about it sometime. But yeah, 1983 was playing Pac-Man on a milk crate.
Make a note to ask about the milk crate.
Ask about it sometime. Buy me a beer and I'll regale you with the story of me and milk crates.
Video game hangover. We have a history with milk crates.
At least I do.
Right, exactly. But no, it's kind of awesome your parents owned an arcade. That's like a kid's dream come true.
Oh, it's corrupted me, man.
Was it as amazing as it sounds to me? Was it sort of all the free games you could play?
Yeah,
they make you pay for your games. They give you a
right. Exactly.
Well, what they would do is they would, like putting that quarter into the slot. That's like a visceral experience everyone has to experience, So they did actually let me do that, and then they would just open her up and take the quarters out. So I did get to play it for free, but I did get to insert the coins. It was awesome.
Wow, nice.
But man, you think it's a dream come true having parents who own an arcade, and actually they eventually sold that arcade and they bought like a laundromat a few years later, and they had a few arcade games in there too.
Not as cool.
Not as cool. Okay, yeah, it's a downgrade, but man, I'm telling you, the things I learned in those arcades from those foul-mouthed teenagers, I still hold those scars today. So it's not necessarily as cool as you might think.
It's funny how sort of different expectations are, because at this point having access to a laundromat would be fucking awesome to me. As somebody who lives in an apartment complex that does not have in-apartment facilities to be able to do my own laundry would be amazing.
Yeah. See, I'm lucky. I have in-suite laundry, but this is not Video Game Hangover, the apartment podcast.
Right, laundry hangover.
DJ, how did you get started in gaming?
Oh, me? Sorry. Cut out for a second.
Yeah, you.
I'm pretty sure it was Super Mario Brothers on the NES. I don't remember specifically, but I remember that game sort of is stuck in my my memory as being a landmark experience, because I don't think I had seen anything like it before, and suddenly this little guy on the screen, you can push these buttons to make him move, and that was just blew me away. No, so Super Mario Brothers, and I think one of the things that really appealed to me is, when I wasn't playing it, when my brother was taking his turn or something, I'd read the instruction manual, so the guide or something. And back then, when games actually had instruction manuals, this is no
the good
Call
old
of Duty
days.
Or Assassin's Creed with their go to the website and print out our PDF. It was
it.
They'd have character backstories and descriptions of all the items and the worlds, and even the little monsters had their own little stories, and that really sort of fascinated me. It was I had a very active imagination, so I would imagine all these like this whole Super Mario world like it was a real place, and what would go on when you're not playing the game.
in elementary school, did you ever like design levels for games like Mega Man and stuff? Because I used to draw a lot of that kind of crap and get in trouble for it. It was kind of hilarious.
There may have been a few Mega Man levels drawn. Was a huge Mega Man fan at the time. It's funny though, because in the fourth grade, my friends and I would actually get together at recess or lunch and sort of design our own video games, and it was super nerdy because it wasn't just the games. We would have like, imaginary game companies that we would like own and be like, oh, this game is gonna, go under the banner of this company. It would be like fake Capcom or whatever.
So you were playing Game Dev Story before there was a Game Dev Story.
I know, yeah. Dude, get my lawyer. And we draw the sprites and come up with explanations for the power-ups, and like girls would come up to us on the playground and be like, what's going on here? Because we'd have all our binders out and all this paper and pencils on the blacktop, and they're like, what are you doing? Are you doing homework? And we're like, no, we're not doing homework. We're making video games. Ooh.
God forbid.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
It would almost be cooler if you were doing your homework.
This is back before video games were as cool and hip as they are today.
Right. No, it's funny that you're talking about reading game manuals, because I don't recall that piece of gaming ever. I don't recall ever actually having access to brand new games. I think I recall sort of everything we ever had for any system we ever had when I was a kid, we would rent, and they would come from the video store in these like plastic clamshell boxes that would have an abbreviation of how to control the game.
Yes. I hate those things.
Right.
Oh man, I rented a ton of games from Blockbuster, and if you were lucky, you'd get the manual in there. It was like, yes, this copy has the manual in it.
Sometimes I would think those little plastic inserts or whatever the hell in those cases were like written by the dude who worked behind the counter, because the controls were incomplete, and oh god, what a nightmare.
Right. Or we would have sort of like flea market games that just, it would just be the cartridge. It would never come with any of the paperwork that went with it, or God forbid the original box. So, so it's funny that I don't recall that piece of gaming history, but I sort of know it's valid, and well, not just because you just said it, but what's the DS game that's sort of like Retro Gamer Challenge?
Oh yeah, Retro Game Challenge, I think.
And that's a part of it. One of the things you do in the game is sort of read through old game manuals and read through old gaming magazines to get hints on the retro games you play through in the game. And I was like, I think I sort of missed this part of the history because I was cheap.
Oh, that's so sad.
It wasn't just the manuals. Like back then they had, they still have guides today, but the guides back then were on a completely whole different level. Like they'd throw in all this other information about like the worlds in each game, like each world in Super Mario Brothers. And then later on, like Zelda 3 and Earthbound had these ridiculously in-depth guides, and they wouldn't even talk about the game. They'd talk about, the history of towns you visit and weird cultural traditions there, or the restaurants, and it was like, wow, this is just crazy. Somebody actually spent all this time to imagine all that. And
if I recall, Earthbound came with that big guide, didn't it?
Yeah, the box for Earthbound was
right.
as big as like the whole guide, because it had the guide in it.
Right, and it had like those scratch and sniff things in the back and whatever. Like you could smell the barf boss or whatever. It was just awesome.
Wow.
So what was the first system that you owned, Randy?
That we owned? Well, I mean, the first system that I sort of had access to was an Atari 2600. My by the mid 80s, so like 85, 86, my parents had divorced, and my mother was sort of, I guess we were dating. It's weird to think about your mother dating.
Wait, you and your mother were? What?
No, my mother was dating the guy that she. Oh, I know exactly. Your mom ultimately married and is now my stepdad. And he had kids. He has 3 kids.
Oh shit! Is he the Tom Clancy fan?
He is the Tom Clancy fan. Good job putting all the pieces together. And he had Atari 2600 hooked up to this big old black and white TV in sort of the kids' playroom in the basement kind of thing. And he had a big shoebox of games. And I had never sort of been in a home where I had sort of all the access I wanted to a video game system before. I mean, unfortunately, it was Atari 2600, but I remember playing...
Dude, that stuff was awesome!
Right, sort of at the time, I remember playing Tank and Pong I remember playing
Pitfall. Oh
right,
my god.
Pitfall. I remember playing Pitfall quite obsessively. I think that was
Joust?
probably. I don't think I ever played Joust.
Oh, you missed out.
But I had access to Pac-Man. I had access to Miss Pac-Man, which I liked. Missile Defense, which I still sort of see in little YouTube clips now, and I get all twitchy because I remember how hard that game was to me as a kid. Like 85, 86, I was like 11 years old. So, yeah, I mean, those were sort of the thing of beauty to me. I mean, I never really got obsessed. I mean, in a house of 5 kids, trying to get time on the Atari was hard.
I'll bet.
And I sort of prided myself on being a big reader. I was a big egghead kid, so I was always sort of reading books and stuff like that. And if I could get any time on the system, I would. But yeah, one of the other sort of memories I have of this era is that you're talking about sort of arcades. My dentist had an arcade table cabinet, like one of the ones you would sit in 2 chairs on either side
Hell
of.
yeah,
It had
yeah.
the screen inside the table.
Dentist had a
My dentist,
Pac-Man.
yeah.
What?
No, he had asteroids, and it had
awesome.
the trackball to control the little triangle spaceship.
That is the best dentist
Right.
ever.
Well, that was my thought too. Is like I hated going to the dentist, but he had the asteroids arcade cabinet in his waiting room. So yeah, that was pretty fucking awesome.
Wow.
Can you just imagine like a little kid in the dentist chair and you can hear the other kids in the waiting room playing asteroids? And
Playing asteroids, and I'm getting.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Man, the first system I got to own was the NES. I kind of missed the Atari 2600 both, but a friend of mine had one, so I got to play awesome games like Pitfall and whatever. But I remember in grade school, see, this is before, like, games were cool when I was a kid, and then they became uncool when I went to middle school and high school. But when I was in elementary, they were super cool. And I remember, like, I was talking about games with some girls in my class, and they were super impressed with my gaming knowledge and prowess. And my first girlfriend, she loved Duck Hunt, and she taught me that, like, I was struggling with Duck Hunt, okay, because I was playing it legit. You know, I was standing, yes! And she also told me that if you stand right up against the TV, you can just point the gun at the ducks and shoot them right from like an inch away. And I'm like, holy shit, that's brilliant. So I proposed to her on the spot. And unfortunately, the relationship did not last. But
It didn't work out, huh?
I loved her, and I forget her name. Breaks my heart.
Oh, man, that's harsh.
But thankfully,
If she was willing to cheat at Duck Hunt, she was going to cheat on you eventually.
it was Laura. I remember.
Don't
her
get
name
involved
was
with somebody
Laura.
to cheat at Duck Hunt.
Right, exactly. Says something about their character.
I don't know. That could be some good times, man. If we could regale our grandchildren with stories about how she taught me how to cheat at Duck Hunt, and they'd be like, what the hell is going
It'd be
on?
like, what's Duck Hunt?
Yeah, no, that was good times, man.
So I eventually had access to an NES. We had it was impossible to convince my mother that gaming was a good use of time, so there was no way she was ever going to buy a gaming system for us to have in the house. But my cool uncle Robert, saw things differently. When I was in 88, so 14 years old, so like when I was in my early teens, he was in his 20s, and I just thought he was the coolest dude ever. And to sort of fortify that, one year for Christmas, he gave me an NES with Super Mario Brothers 2 and Contra.
Oh, that's a good one.
Contra.
Mario
Yeah.
2.
Which is a pretty good combo, yeah. I actually played Mario Brothers 2 before playing the first one.
Now, who is your favorite character in Super Mario Brothers 2? DJ?
Princess, it's gotta be.
Randy?
Princess could hover, right?
She could float, yeah.
That's
yeah,
the
yeah,
key.
Princess, yeah, absolutely.
Me too.
That's not even a question. Everybody picks Princess.
I guess it isn't.
Well, I mean, what a cool game mechanic to add to to a game like that. I'd just be amazed by it. And that was the one where he had the little costumes, the raccoon costume and stuff he could put on.
That was
right?
3,
Oh, okay.
which is still today one of the greatest games ever made.
Yeah, I've played that too. Then, so that's somewhere that came into my my radar as well. But yeah, my brother and I played alternating between Mario Brothers 2 and Contra incessantly. So much so that I went from being a straight A student to a straight C student in one grading period. Yeah,
awesome.
I was a latchkey kid. I was a child of divorce, so I was accustomed to sort of coming home and sitting at the kitchen table and doing my homework. But in a house where there was a Nintendo Entertainment System, that did not factor in at all. So instead of sort of spending those 4 hours before my mom would come home from work doing my homework, I would play video games. I would play Mario Brothers 2 and Contra nonstop. So once report cards came out and I was C's across the board, my mother took the Nintendo away.
Oof.
Yeah, and hid it somewhere in the house. I'm convinced it's still somewhere in the house. I don't recall ever seeing it. I don't know whatever became of it. I can only imagine it's sort of on a shelf somewhere that somebody has long since forgotten, and we'll bulldoze the house someday and discover it. But
it'll still work. Those Nintendo products are invincible.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to bang the cartridge on the table and blow
it. Yes, of course.
Right. We were only allowed to play on weekends after that. So, there's a lot of sort of the Nintendo experience from that era that I missed because I wasn't able to balance school with video gaming. I never got into sort of Metroid games or Castlevania games or Zelda or any of the stuff that sort of came out of that era because I just didn't have access to it. I mean, I was only allowed a few hours on weekends after homework was done, and it just wasn't a flow of new games into the house because of that. So I missed a lot of that crap.
And it's funny that you mentioned Contra because I remember the first time I rented that game. Oh my god. A buddy of mine, he was telling me about how amazing a game it was, and at the time we couldn't afford to buy every single game that was coming out at the time because we were kind of struggling or whatever. But it's funny because what I had to do is I had to rent it from the video store, which was, they still existed at that time and they still rented games and whatnot. But I remember calling the store and I was checking to see if it was in or not, and it was out. So I had to reserve it for the next day. And the lady was saying that it would be returned sometime the next day. She didn't know when because apparently people had till noon or something to return the games. So the next day I wake up at the crack of dawn, and I, being a foolish little kid, I didn't know when the video store was actually going to open. So I start calling her at 7 o'clock, and they're closed. And I must have called every 10 minutes up until when they opened, and then I continued to call every 10 minutes until she... I really wanted this game, and, I distinctly remember the lady...
signs of psychosis.
Right. What can I say? I'm an obsessive personality, but... the owner, I remember she was being really sweet. She wasn't getting pissed off at me or anything like that. She was pretty accommodating of my obsession. And so I have to thank you, random lady person. I don't know who you are, but 25 years later or whatever, I still appreciate you being kind to me. But anyway, I must have...
That's above and beyond the Call of Duty right there.
Yeah.
As someone who works retail, let me tell you, we all have our breaking point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think around the 30th time I called her, it was in. So no, get this. This is one of the coolest moments my dad ever had, raising me. I call my dad, and he's at work. He takes an early lunch break so he can drive me down to the video store and get it right away, just so I can have that extra 2 hours to play with the game. So, like I said, my parents are to blame for my video game addiction. Oh, God, what enablers. But,
That's impressive.
Sorry, Dad,
thank
you.
Were your parents gamers? Did your parents game, or were they just sort of accommodating of your interest?
No, it's funny because, as I got older, my obsession didn't really wane, and then they started to get worried when I was 18. I'm like, Mom, it's too fucking late.
It's too late, exactly. You missed your chance to wean me off of this.
That's right. You made me what I am. It's
That's funny.
Oh, man, I must have played Contra, from the second I got it for, 2 days straight or whatever, and... I'm telling you guys, my skills in that game have not degraded at all over the last 20 years. I think about 18 months ago, I played Contra with my brother-in-law, and I died twice throughout the entire game. I was so proud of myself. I'm like, wow. My body remembers how to play this game, even if my mind doesn't.
That muscle twitch memory kicks in, huh?
You do it blindfolded.
I should try that sometime. Old man hands, my ass.
I think it was brutal. I mean, I was much more into Mario than I was into the Contra, but my stepbrother, Scott, who was about my age, was a big Contra fan, and he and I would play the two-player, and he was infinitely better at it, which began a lifetime of other people sort of covering for me in co-op games. But Contra has good stuff. I don't know if you have it, Contra 4 for the DS. I think it came out about a year ago.
I have that in shrink wrap still. Man, I want to play that, though.
It is insanely hard, but it definitely sort of gets back to that classic Contra experience. It's a good time.
I'm sad to say that Contra has been dead to me since Super Contra for the Super Nintendo. That was the last
one
great Contra.
I played was Shattered Soldier on the PS2, and that was awful. So,
oh, God.
Yeah. I hope Contra 4 is
Try the Contra 4. I think you guys will approve.
Okay, I might have to check it out then.
I believe it has online play. Let's work something out.
Wow.
Okay.
I did not know that.
I
will
think
write
so.
that
It's got
down.
the little Wi-Fi logo on the box, if I remember correctly. So, to be continued. We'll have to dig into that some other time.
Yeah, I'm looking here, and Randy, you got a bit of a black
I've,
mark.
I've got it right here, and I think you just lied to us.
Oh, did I make that shit up?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
My hopes are crushed.
I apologize.
But anyway.
Way to go, Randy.
Maybe somebody's working on it for the 3DS. We'll
So
get back to you.
he's
Yeah,
a liar.
that's
He's a liar
Do-
and a thief.
We want to announce that now. Coming August 12th to the 3DS,
Oh yeah.
Contra 5
Contra
with
5,
online co-op support.
online
Yeah.
voice
With
chat,
voice chat.
video
in
chat.
3D.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
3D voice chat.
3D voice chat. All the Ds you need in voice chat.
Dude, you got to save these predictions for future shows. Otherwise,
Uh-huh.
why are people going to listen?
You got to meter them out, huh?
Yeah,
I
Pace
got-
yourself.
I can just go all night.
Oh.
That's going to
I've
be
heard-
in the excerpt next time, isn't it?
DJ, that's not what I heard. But anyways, fast forwarding a tiny bit for my narrative here. I think 1991, I was a junior in high school.
Tisk.
I vaguely recall possibly maybe shoplifting a Game Boy from the Saturday matinee in my local mall.
And your mother promptly changed your name to Thief.
Oh no, I had to hide that shit. There's no way my mother could know that I had a Game Boy. So I had to play that on the stealth.
Those things are not easy to hide. Those are
No,
quite
that thing was
large.
like a brick. It was.
I'm impressed.
Right. I'm fairly certain I'm solely responsible for this Saturday matinee going out of business because there's no way that I
That
ever
was-
paid for
The Game Boy that broke just put them under.
right, for the corporation. But yeah, I got a Game Boy. I remember playing. Obviously, it came with Tetris, and I played an ass load of Tetris. It was that was the first game I ever remember going to bed and still sort of seeing in my head as I was trying to go to sleep. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I just remember playing Kicks, which was the cool game where you had like the little sparkly thing bouncing around on the screen and you had to draw a box
Oh,
around it.
that was a good one.
Which was sort of like a Centipede kind of guy. Played a lot of Paperboy, which is sort of a classic as well. And still to this day, the only Final Fantasy game I've ever finished. Final Fantasy Legend for the
I'm
for the
sorry.
Game Boy. Yeah, well, I remember sort of having fond memories of it and enjoying it. So I don't know. I mean, it certainly probably wouldn't hold up to any of the current Final Fantasy experiences, but I thought it was cool.
DJ was probably the earliest adopter of those Final Fantasy games out of the three of us, I think.
Actually, I don't know if that's true.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was the first Final Fantasy game that you played?
The first one, and I'm a little ashamed to admit this, was on the Super Nintendo. It was Final Fantasy Mystic Quest.
Oh, really?
One of the most reviled Final Fantasies in the series.
No, I liked it. I
I
did.
love that game.
I didn't
And-
know any better.
It you know, I gotta thank it because it single-handedly got me into RPGs, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
The total black sheep of the series, but yeah.
No, I disagree. That's one of the earliest RPGs that I played. Randy, you didn't really. You kind of missed out on the 16-bit era, eh?
I didn't. I think probably once I hit sort of senior year of high school and through quite a lot of college, I didn't really game at all. So I think there's probably 5 years or so in there where maybe 4 years or so in there where I missed gaming. So I think that was obviously sort of getting into, I think, Sega Genesis era.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sort of in college there were people who were really obsessed with Altered Beast. And it sounded like a very cool game to
Oh
me,
my
but,
God! Don't even
but
get
I
me
didn't have
started.
access to it.
I will tell you all about Altered Beast. DJ, did you ever have a Genesis and Super Nintendo and all that stuff?
No, I don't think I've ever owned a Sega system. I was one of those guys.
Oh my God.
All my friends and I were just very solidly in the Nintendo camp.
Dude, it had blast processing. It had Sonic. Oh my God. I remember my dad, he bought us a Sega Genesis for like $450. We had Golden Axe and we had Altered Beast, and my brother and I played the shit out of those games. Oh my God. My dad even bought us a new TV just to play Golden Axe on.
Oh my
Holy,
God.
he was an enabler.
I remember reading at the time, I've always been a huge music fan and still quite obsessive about music. And I remember after Pretty Hate Machine and Broken came out, I was dying for a new Nine Inch Nails album. Dying. And there was this huge, like, 5 or 6 year gap in between. And I remember reading an interview with Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails saying that the new Nine Inch Nails album would be done if it wasn't for Altered Beast.
Oh my god.
He had spent so much time playing that video game that he was not working on a new record. And I was like, no, you have to put the controller down, Trent.
I have one distinct memory of like staying up all night playing Altered Beast with my brother. I'm not even sure if I can tell this story because it's a little vulgar what happened, but let's just say that we laughed so hard that we ended up
God.
we pissed ourselves. We were
Oh,
laughing
my.
so- yeah, we had a good time playing that game. I don't even remember exactly what it was that made us laugh so hard, but we were stupid kids who had had way too much Coke. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Our parents were neglecting us, as usual, letting us play our video games. I don't
Somebody
know.
needs to talk to the youth services about your parents here, Paul.
I'm going to have to give my parents a call this weekend and ask them what's up.
All right. I think I got all the supervision you were missing because I was kept under a lock and key for quite a while, apparently. So, but yeah, then I was out shoplifting. So
Yeah. Too much Coke that night. Let's just say that.
Coca-Cola, let's be clear on that.
Yeah, my parents weren't that bad. I mean, that good.
Here's a Altered Beast, just a pound of Coke, see you in an hour. couldn't get a babysitter.
Right.
Coke was our babysitter.
Your mother and I are going to the movies. Be good.
Don't blow it all in one sitting.
We're going to go see Teen Wolf.
Love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh, Michael J. Fox.
Good times.
Good man. See, the 16-bit era, though, that's kind of when my tastes completely changed. I guess you could say, like, I went through a phase where I was really digging awesome games like Power Rangers. And this is where everything changed. I remember one weekend, I think it was, 1994. My best friend, he did not have a Super Nintendo, so he decided to sleep over for the weekend, and we were going to go out and rent a couple of games and just hang out and play video games all weekend. So I picked Power Rangers, because that's the kind of loser I was, and he picked a little game called Final Fantasy III, and that ended up being the first RPG that I played. So here's what happened. We're sitting there, and we blow through Power Rangers in like 2 hours, okay? And I had zero interest in this weird Japanesey game. Sure, Randy, you can relate. You know, I used to be anti-Japan as well. But
Well, I'm not anti-Japan. Just want to be clear on that. I've had some amazing sushi in
Disclaimer.
my day. I've had a lot of sake. But yeah, whatever. We'll get it. That's another show for another day. I do have objections to Japanese gaming, but carry on. Sorry.
I did too, but I was 14. That was my excuse. I don't know what yours is, but I was 14. And it's funny because all my favorite games from like the Nintendo era was all Japanese-made games, but whatever. I did not like the idea of playing a game where all you would do is sit back, press a button, and read a bunch of text. And it's kind of funny what happened. So we pop in Final Fantasy III, and I'm rolling my eyes. Okay, I'm sitting there just rolling my eyes, laughing at them. This is the stupidest game ever, and I didn't know anything about the game, so I was like, just being an arrogant little punk ass kid, I guess. If I could go back in time, I would punch me in the face. But I'm sitting
Oh, you
there.
saw the Coke.
Yeah, might have
Bad
been.
attitude.
But this is the thing. Okay, here's what happened. He boots up the game. Well, boots up. He loads up, starts up the game, and what happens is the most amazing intro begins to play. Now, for those of you who have never played Final Fantasy III, it's Final Fantasy VI in Japan. It has one of the most atmospheric and beautiful intros of any Super Nintendo game ever made, and I could not believe what I was seeing. There was like this orchestrated music, and I was used to, like blips and bloops and crap like this, and I could tell right away that someone had put a lot of thought into this music, and it grabbed me right away. And the game just looked amazing. It had this incredible, like, hand-drawn type of look to a lot of the enemies. The sprites and the colors just looked incredible. And what had happened is, from that day forward, I had become obsessed with JRPGs, all thanks to Final Fantasy III. And it was kind of neat because my buddy and I, we ended up co-oping through the game. And this is like the first game I can remember, like the first RPG or whatever that had co-op. I mean, I could not believe that this game had co-op. And we played through it for like 20 hours, and then we had to return it. And the next day, I asked my dad for money to go out and buy it. And I ended up spending about $150 on this game. It was ridiculous.
This
how
is
expensive it was.
Canadian money. To interject.
Oh, okay. So
like,
I spent about $10 American at the time.
there you go. Okay.
But
Oh,
yeah,
how the times have changed.
yeah. What is up with that now? We're on
Yeah.
par, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
excellent.
it's pretty much dollar for dollar, yeah.
Go Canada. We'll show you what's up. But $150 I spent on this game, and we were about 20 hours in, and we started all the way from scratch, and we had thought that we had gotten to the final part of the game. And when we were purchasing the game, I was talking to the clerk, and I was asking him, like, oh yeah, what's after this certain part that we got to, like the floating continent or whatever it was. And my buddy and I were like, well, what's after that? Is that like the final boss? And he's like, no, dude, you're about halfway through the game. And we were like, what? No, like our minds could not fathom that a game could be over 20 hours long. It just wasn't heard of. We were used to like Power Rangers 2 hours long,
Right.
whatever. And this was like 40 or 50. I think it took me about 60 hours to beat the bloody game for the first time. So from that day forward, man, I had become hooked on JRPGs. I even ordered the soundtrack to this game, and I had to import it or something. I forget what it was, but I ended up paying like $100 for that. So in total, I spent about $250 on Final Fantasy III and the soundtrack. And to this day, I love JRPGs. That game transformed what I thought about video games. Oh, changed me forever.
Clearly.
Yes, love it.
Had kind of the same thing going on in middle school. Like, I guess starting with Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, because I had never played an RPG before, but suddenly it was like, oh, this game is totally, it's not an action game like Mario or everything I've been playing up to that point.
No.
And, like I said with Mario, I was really interested in sort of the world and just sort of the depth to the characterization and all that. And suddenly there's this whole genre where that's like the focus, because you've got all these usually pretty interesting main characters, and there's a real emphasis on telling an actual story.
Yeah, it was very different back then.
So these sort of early experiments in trying to get sort of like character and story into a video game narrative.
Well, JRPGs back then, they were the only genre that attempted that. Everything else was just like, are you a bad enough dude to save the president? And then like these games were like trying to tell a story. So you were saying Mystic Quest was your first actual JRPG. Where did you go from there?
After that, I think at that point I went back and played Dragon Warrior 1 on the NES, which became Dragon Quest. I guess it was Dragon Quest in Japan. And it's funny because I think I had played that at a friend's when it came out, and I just didn't get into it at the time. But then later on I went back and I sort of identified it as an RPG. I was like, I want to play that. So I played that, and then what was next? I think Secret of Mana came out.
Oh, God, yes.
Secret of Mana was amazing.
Oh, man.
Still one of the best, probably my top 3 Super Nintendo games. But
Oh, yeah. Those 3 Squaresoft games, man, back then, for me, it was Final Fantasy III, Secret of Mana, and Chrono Trigger. And I cannot talk enough about Chrono Trigger. I don't want to get into that right now, but ooh, changed my life.
That's my next DS game, Paul.
Excellent. Maybe we can get into that sometime.
Someday.
Unbelievable. That was like, what, around 94, 95-ish? And you were in college, Randy, at that time?
Yeah, I graduated from high school in 92, so I was
my
like
God.
a sophomore in college. At that
I
point.
wasn't even shaving at that time.
Oh, I was shaving.
but after that, it was just like straight RPGs for the next 10 years almost.
Hell yeah, man.
I
I
was
hear
just
ya.
like obsessed. I couldn't, like Squaresoft was like, they could do no wrong
Nope.
in my book. Everything that came out, it was like Final Fantasy 2, 3, Chrono Trigger, like you said. When they got into the PlayStation era, it was like Final Fantasy 7, and they started branching out. But they just had these solid hits after one after another, and it was just amazing.
I don't think I knew enough about gaming at the time, or certainly didn't know enough about sort of categories of gaming to know that Final Fantasy Legend was an RPG. I knew I enjoyed it, but I mean, I don't think I ever played a game like that until probably last year. So I went probably 15 years without playing another RPG kind of game.
Hold on. Wasn't Final Fantasy Legend the first Secret of Mana?
That was Final Fantasy Adventure.
Okay, I knew there was some Game Boy title.
Fun trivia for you, Randy. Final Fantasy Legend is actually not a Final Fantasy game.
Oh, what is it then?
It's the first in the Saga series, I think. It's called Japan. It has some long Japanese name.
Oh, and they just sort of like put an American skin on it and released it as a Final Fantasy game in the U.S.?
Yeah, because Final Fantasy had some sort of recognition, the name.
Oh, so it was a way to sort of get Final Fantasy into the Game Boy and utilize that brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I liked it. I remember sort of walking through the woods and finding a little vortex thing that would take me to a castle, and it was good stuff. I had a good time with that. I played the hell out of it. But yeah, no, I was sort of RPG free until 2010. That was my last experience with it.
Like 15 years clean.
Right.
Until now.
So yeah, I think we ready to move forward in the timeline? Are you guys?
Yeah.
I think 16-bit. I don't have much to contribute in that era, but I think 3DO was 32-bit, right? Is that
3DO?
Sega CD?
Yeah, I think so.
So it's like 95, 96. I'm 3 or 4 years into college. I think it was probably 96, 4 years into college. My college roommate Jared bought a Panasonic 3DO and hooked it up to the TV in our apartment. I remember the price tag on this thing.
I'm still amazed that you could get one of these things, like, it fit into your college budget.
Yeah, did he take a second mortgage or something? How do you afford that?
I'm not sure how he pulled it off. I don't think it was anything sort of devious or nefarious or anything like that.
Maybe he sold coke to my parents.
Right. I remember there was a lot of a lot of planning, a lot of scrimping and saving. I knew, it would be unfair for me to sort of try to guess where the money came from, but no, I mean he had access to the cash and bought it and
Amazing.
got it was I think it was about $700 at the time for a Panasonic 3DO. And I remember him pricing them. I remember him many different like game stores and stuff like that trying to find a better deal. So he probably paid less, but and I know that he was trading in some old gaming stuff, blah blah blah. But whatever. So the game that obviously it was hysterical that he would spend that much money on a gaming system in college, and it didn't stop me from making fun of him for that. But of course, as soon as it was hooked up to the TV and I saw some of the games in action, though, I had to be a part of it, of course. Way of the Warrior is one of the ones that sort of jumped out at first. I don't think Way of the Warrior ever existed on any other system. It was a fighting game. It was obviously
by the way, we're reserving all of our ridiculing Randy for the last 10 minutes of the show, so we're just going to control ourselves.
So it was I believe obviously it was an attempt to sort of cash in on the ultra-violent fighting game sort of phenomena started by Mortal Kombat.
Oh yeah.
And this was a game that had like a ceiling fan with blades on it, and you could uppercut somebody into the ceiling fan, and like body parts would fly everywhere. The characters that you played were sort of full motion video capture of actors, and poorly animated, of course, and super herky-jerky. But
of course.
It was the best time. We had so much fun with that freaking game. There was an FBI agent named Fox, who would sort of take off his suit jacket and would kick ass. And there's this like 7 foot tall, bald black guy who just was awesome. He was my favorite go-to character. The entire game had a soundtrack that was just the first White Zombie album looped over and over and over again. So still 20 years later, when I hear any White Zombie song, I think
Nice.
Way of the Warrior.
That was like one of the first CD systems, wasn't it? So they got to fill up that disc somehow.
That's
they did,
right.
yeah. And they filled it up with all White Zombie.
Find some engineer's White Zombie CD lying around. Here we go,
Rip
guys.
it into the game.
Got your soundtrack right here, fellas.
Right. Yeah, there were other games too. I remember him getting Gex, which was a platformer where you were a gecko, and the gecko was obsessed with TV and got sucked into sort of TV world and had to collect remote controls to get out.
Yeah, my wife loved that game as a kid.
It was really funny. Dana Gould, who is a great comedian, who is still a great comedian, was the voice of Gex back in the day, and he had these little one-liners whenever he would sort of do in a bad guy that were a riot. At least they were a riot to me in college. I don't know if they would hold up, but... And I remember playing Sewer Shark and Quarantine. and Brain Dead 13. I remember there was a game called Horde that was a lot of full motion. There's tons of full motion video during this system, and it had video of Kirk Cameron in it.
Yeah.
Who later went on to be some crazy
He's a little nuts now,
nutbag. Yeah, exactly. But it was hysterical that the dude from Growing Pains was in a video game.
And here's a little tidbit for you. His wife married the brother of Pavel Bure, who played for the Vancouver Canucks.
Fascinating. And I was...
Or his sister. Yeah, not his wife.
There were great horror games on the 3DO. There was a game called Hell. They actually had a video of Dennis Hopper and Grace Jones in it. What else? Out of This World I remember playing. Alone in the Dark I remember playing. Night Trap, which was the
Night Trap,
the infamous game where you could see Dana.
Night Trap. Okay, sorry.
I believe there were boobs in there somewhere.
No, there was like pixelated lingerie wearing girls, but no boobs.
And then Dana played it, killed herself.
Was it because of Night Trap?
No, I don't know about that. But there was a game called D, and I don't remember any of the details, but I remember that it was super scary.
I remember that game.
It's a great story, right?
Vaguely.
You
ever played Return Fire?
No, I don't think I did.
Oh man, that was a good one.
Is that a 3DO game?
Yeah, they brought it out on PS1 later. I had to pick it up because I did not own a fancy 3DO.
You didn't have access to such technology.
I didn't have access to the funds like that. No.
Yeah, so that was, again, sort of not something that I owned or not something that I stole, but just something that was sort of in the house that I lived in, and I would play whenever I would have a chance. But
it was there.
Yeah, it was a good time. And I think that was the first time that I ever remember sort of consuming gaming media, like finding magazines and reading reviews and stuff like that, and really sort of started engaging in a conversation with like people at video game stores, like at Funko Land and stuff like that, about gaming, and it was the first time that I sort of realized that there was a gaming culture, just beyond sort of being a player, that there were other people that you could sort of communicate with, and it would be a shorthand between you and them. So it was a cool way, like as somebody who was sort of an oddball kid, like knowing things about games and knowing what games were cool. And not that anything on the 3DO was cool now in hindsight, but was a cool way to sort of associate with other people who might be of a similar mindset. So that was cool to me.
See, it's funny that you mentioned gaming magazines, because I now remember the first issue of EGM ever that I bought, and had Desert Strike on the cover, and it was one of those little split down the middle and folded out for like a super giant cover of Doom type thing. Oh man, I love that magazine. So I guess you never really got caught up in the huge fighting game craze of the early to mid 1990s, eh?
No, I never. I mean, other than Way of the Warrior, I never played. There was another 3DO fighting game called Rise of the Robots. I remember that too.
Oh no!
Right, exactly. But no, never really got it wrapped into it. I don't think I ever played a Mortal Kombat game until probably 2 or 3 years ago. I've never played a Street Fighter game.
See, here, I bet you something. DJ, did you get caught up in the fighting craze?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And anybody with a Super Nintendo or who was into gaming back then, except Randy, I guess, was playing fighting games. There you go. No, Street Fighter and all those things.
My college roommate Jared, who was sort of my portal into gaming at this time, we used to skip our morning classes in college so we could go to the arcade to Tilt at the mall and play Virtua Fighter, which he was infinitely better at than I was. But it was still like 3D models. A camera that would spin all the way around the playfield and stuff like that was super impressive to me, and you had to go to the arcade to play it. So that was. Well,
it's no wonder you'd never been able to get into fighting games. The only one you played was Virtua Fighter.
Don't knock Virtua Fighter, man. I had a birthday party in 1995 where we rented a Sega Saturn and the first Virtua Fighter, and if you've ever played that game, you know it's like buggy as hell. Like half the polygons in your character would disappear at any given time. It was that kind of like buggy mess, and we must have stayed up. See, here's the thing. What makes a good fighting game or a good competition is when everyone is on a level playing field. If one of your friends is better than everyone else, it's no fun getting your ass kicked. And I don't want to brag, but I was always the dude who was the best. But when we rented...
that sounds an awful lot like bragging.
But when we rented Virtua Fighter on my birthday, I think it was in 1995, nobody knew how to play the game. And so it was like the best fighting game experience ever. See, I'm obsessed over Street Fighter 2 growing up. I would like make up stories about the characters. Like Dalsum was Sagat's younger brother and all this weird stuff because I didn't know anything about the game. Me and my friends after Taekwondo class, we would like stare through the window at the local convenience store that had a Street Fighter 2 cabinet because we were broke. We didn't have any money at the time. We couldn't play. And we were like, just, who's that guy? Oh, what's that? What's that? And finally, I got some money and I was able to play the game. And then it came out on the Super Nintendo. And I practiced day in, day out. And I got good enough that I could beat people in the arcades. And I played like every single crappy fighting game that came out during that time. But I got so good at Street Fighter 2 that one time I beat this guy who was a senior in high school. And he beat me up for it.
Outside of the game.
Yep. He got pissed off. He put me in a headlock, punched me in the face.
Ooh.
Video game violence begets real life violence.
It was worth it. I humiliated him with my guile. And to this day, I'm still a guile
player. You didn't hit him with your flash kick after he socked you in the face?
No, unfortunately, I couldn't pull off those moves. Although, one time I did dress up as Ryu for Halloween, and that was pretty badass.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, in Taekwondo class, I would, like, mimic Ryu's moves and fighting stance, and people were like, this guy is fucking bonkers. But hey, whatever. I was obsessed. Loved those fighting games. Yeah!
DJ, can you top that?
I don't think I ever got punched in the face, no.
No.
At least not that I remember. No.
Well, you're missing out.
Okay, well, next time I go to the arcade, I'll pick on some guy. So.
You can find an arcade. Let us know.
There's actually this one like half a mile from me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He lives in California, man.
Oh, right. That's where all the coolness is.
Mm-hmm.
It's where all the coolness is. No, but am I supposed to say something about fighting games?
Yeah, I want to know, like, you played them, obviously.
It seems like, all my friends are into them, because Street Fighter 2, it was another one of those sort of revelatory moments where, like with RPGs, I'd never seen a fighting game before. And up until then, two-player games were always like, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers or something. And it's like, yeah, I'm not knocking Chip and Dale. That game was awesome. But yeah, it was like co-op or, you're racing around a track or something like that. But then it was like, oh man, suddenly there's this game that makes you just straight up fight the other player. And it was kind of intense and different. And it was pretty exciting back then.
Well, you got little secret moves you had to learn and all that stuff too. So there was sort of a subculture of devotion that went with it.
Yeah, I remember watching, watching some people play Street Fighter 2 in the arcade, and I had given it a shot. Like the one time there was nobody on the machine, I was like, oh, I finally get to play Street Fighter 2. And my brother and I would use the punches and kicks, all the buttons they have laid out for you, and then we'd watch these guys playing, and suddenly they'd be throwing fireballs or like, shooting electricity, and I was like, what? I didn't get to do that.
No fair.
Yeah.
Dude, people
Really?
used to show off how many dragon punches they could do in a row. That's how it permeated the culture, the youth culture back then. I could not believe how amazing that was. I mean, we used to have debates in Taekwondo class, martial arts and all that stuff going on, about who was the best character. And I would usually say Ryu, but sometimes I would argue that Blanca's standing roundhouse was so overpowered and therefore he was the best. And his little bite move was like so overpowered and all this other stuff. It was just crazy. Just how obsessed we got with that game.
I hate that bite move.
I know.
So beyond that, so what was that? That had to be mid to late 90s, right?
Yeah, well, I think Street Fighter 2 came out in 92, and then it had the best pause sound ever on the Super Nintendo. And then, what happened after the PlayStation 1 era?
Yeah.
96, 97.
So yeah, I didn't game for about 5 years after my adventures with the 3DO. I was so ruined by gaming that I took some time off. I went through a big movie phase. I had at that point I was out of college. I got a job at a movie theater, and I was obsessed with just watching movies kind of around the clock. So I didn't do a lot of gaming, but I ultimately rose to a point where I was running a movie theater. It's about 2000, I think, and some of the employees chipped in and bought me a PS1 for Christmas. I don't know what prompted them to do that, but they did. So I mean, I had been out of touch with gaming and what was cool at that point, and didn't have a clue what I should play. I knew I liked horror games. I knew I liked sort of spy stuff. And the dudes at the Funko Land in the mall in Enfield, Connecticut, the town I grew up in, recommended Silent Hill and Siphon Filter, which I think at that point had sort of just come out.
Siphon Filter was great.
Yes, yeah, I love the Siphon Filter games. It is both the Silent Hill, Silent Hill 2.
He gave you one good recommendation.
Right, exactly. And the Siphon Filters. I still to this day, I have a lot of loyalty to those franchises. And the Silent Hill games have have been mostly miss. Have been a lot of hit. Have been some hit and mostly miss. 1 and 2 are good. Anything beyond that, there's very little to recommend in my opinion.
Oh, 3 was so good.
No, I don't think I cared for 3.
Oh.
But Siphon Filter, there were, I think, two Siphon Filter console games, and I think the rest came out on the PSP.
I'm pretty sure there was a third, but it was
it
was very forgettable.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know I'm sure I've played it at some point, but eventually the Siphon Filter games, they added a 4-player split screen versus mode, which I remember was a good time too. But yeah, the Siphon Filter games, I've played all of those, all the PS1 ones, all the PSP games. Those are a good time. That is a series that, in my opinion, needs like an HD reboot.
People, there's sort of been everybody keeps rumbling about that. They're like, oh, Siphon Filter, I remember that.
I would love for that to come back. That'd be fantastic. I mean, they would have to work very hard, obviously, to make it distinctive.
It's funny. I could never get into that game because I couldn't take it seriously because of the dude's like ridiculous spider walk. Like he walks side to side, and it would look like he's trying to get onto a horse or something.
Yeah. I think they got a lot of sort of weird press about him having a waist and how he could sort of like run in one direction and shoot in another kind of thing. But it ended up on screen. It ended up looking like he was sort of contorting himself into this weird Pilobolus sort of dance routine.
That's what made Logan so badass.
Exactly.
So the first secret agent who can unhinge his hips.
His hips. Well, they had this great big epic story where it was this sort of virus that could be programmed to target specific types of individuals. And it was sort of this nefarious thing where you had to uncover who had access to it and track down the canisters and find the researchers who were developing it. And I remember the coolest weapon in the game was a taser, and you could sneak up behind a dude and go,
God, yes.
And the taser would launch out onto him, and you could like just tap the button for a second or two and incapacitate him, or you could jam down in the button and he would go, "Arr, arr, arr, arr," and he would light on fire.
My friends and I, we would challenge
awesome.
ourselves to see who could get through as many levels or as far through a level just using the taser.
Just lighting folks up.
Yeah, that was the game within the game. It was amazing.
That was a good time. Yes, Siphon Filter needs to come back.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorites was a platformer, like had a goofy sense of humor. You were a skeleton in it, and who was a knight who was resurrected. It was called Medieval. Do you guys remember this?
I remember that. It was kind of a goofy-looking skeleton.
Yeah. Those were fun, too. I think there were 2 or 3 of those. There was also a PSP iteration of it.
You'll just play any game where the main character is dead.
Yeah, right. I love creepy skeleton dudes in games.
You're so goth.
But yeah, that's me. I put on my Manson records and play Medieval. But yeah, there was a...
the guy in Medieval is so not scary looking.
No, not at all.
It's hilarious to imagine like a Manson soundtrack.
It's a good time. But those were fun. They had a lot of little secret areas and stuff like that, and there was a mythology behind those too. Is that you were sort of this exalted warrior from the Crusades, and as sort of time progressed through the game, you began to find out that your character was kind of a coward, and all of the stories that the people told about him were other people's stories that he had sort of horned his way in on. So there was a kind of a wry sort of play on heroism and. You know, it was just goofy and fun. I thought it had kind of a Tim Burton vibe. I liked it.
Man, if I could define the PS1 years for myself, it would probably be RPGs. I think 95% of my time. Yeah, like 95% of my time was spent playing any RPG I could get my hand on. I remember the first RPG I got for the PS1 was called Beyond the Beyond, which is like one of the most awful games I have ever played. It is like take every single generic thing you can think of in an RPG, like a 14-year-old boy who's the hero, whose parents are dead, and it's like every single one of those cliches in a cesspool of turd with a layer of crap on top of it. It's just like this thick crust of garbage, and I hate that game, and I never could beat it, and I always felt bad that I could never complete the game. And then a couple weeks ago I was looking online, and apparently the game is super, super difficult at the end, and a lot of people cannot complete that game because it's complete fucking bullshit, and I hate you, whoever made that game. I think it was Sony made it, I'm not sure. Oh my god, I hate that game.
So RPG fans are sort of notorious for they can never agree on whether a game is the best thing ever or the worst game in the world. But I think everybody agrees that Beyond the Beyond is pretty terrible.
It is the worst.
It's exceptional in that, right?
Yeah, it's the one that proves the rule. But
I will simply chime in here and say that I've never even heard of that game.
Good. That's it. You are better off than me.
Am I better for it? Yeah.
Yeah, I played it, and I'm worse off. I'm still scarred. I'm thinking about it like 15 years later. Oh, nightmares. But man, I got to tell you, like, the greatest gaming marathon I ever did was during the PS1 era. It was like, I call it the weekend in quotes because that's what it was to me. It was mid-October 1998. Metal Gear Solid was released. And
I remember this weekend.
Yes,
I
was Xenogears.
Going down to the store and picking up both of these. And
yes.
I'd never buy 2 games on the same day. That's just ridiculous.
And
what was it? Metal Gear Solid and what?
And Xenogears, which is like one of the best RPGs ever. But, okay. Now, DJ, you said you bought them both on the same day. This is what happened in Canada.
Yeah, well, on the same day, and plus, at the time, I didn't even realize just the magnitude of these 2 games.
Yes.
Right now, I still consider them 2 of the greatest of all time. I had no idea what I was getting into.
This is the greatest weekend of release ever, I think. At least for me personally. See, now you were able to purchase both Xenogears and Metal Gear Solid on the same day. But in Canada, Xenogears release was delayed, at least in Vancouver. I think it was nationwide, because we have to have like English and French manuals. Like, the law had changed.
There's always a huge fuss about that.
Yeah. And so what happened is, okay, I got Metal Gear Solid on the Friday. Played it nonstop till the wee hours of the night, till like 6 or 7 in the morning. And I figured, what the hell? I'm just going to stay up and go to my local game shop and hope that they get Xenogears. So I stayed up till 10, went to the store, and they had Xenogears. And I played that straight through to completion. I even skipped school on Monday just so I could beat the game. So
that is not a short game.
No,
I think that took me about 80 hours the first time.
That's the thing. I think it took me about 65 hours to complete it, and Metal Gear took me about 18. So I played without any sleep and minimal bathroom breaks, Metal Gear Solid, and then Xenogears back to back. Unbelievable.
This was Paul's shitting in a bucket weekend.
This is my borrowing a catheter from a doctor weekend. But I can never pull that off anymore. But like almost, I think over 80 hours of gaming with minimal breaks. I do not know how I pushed myself that hard, but oh man, such fond memories of that weekend. The weekend.
I have a weekend too, but it involves my junior prom. I'm losing my virginity.
Ooh.
There were no video games that weekend.
That was Martha?
I think the names are... I'm going to protect the innocent on that one.
So was Martha.
There's no likelihood that she's listening, but whatever.
Now, we have this on tape. We're going to go check the archives later.
Right. You dig. It's got to be on Facebook somewhere.
That was a pretty incredible weekend, though. Oh, man.
Sounds like a good time. I recall a friend bringing over a copy of Metal Gear Solid and telling me what a great time it was. And I remember trying to play through... Was there like a tutorial where it was like a virtual reality thing?
Yeah.
And thinking like, what is the point of this? Why can't I just shoot that dude? Why do I have to hide? And why do I have to sort of like crouch and wait 10 minutes for the right exact moment? And it just seemed like unnecessarily frustrating to me.
The rule set is very different.
Yes.
But I think it made for an enthralling experience. I mean, you're not the only one who had trouble. I mean, I remember my wife, she had the demo, and it was like the first little section of the actual game, and she couldn't even pass that.
Yeah.
I remember that demo. That was so hyped, and I'd actually never played Metal Gear on the NES, so that was my first sort of Metal Gear experience.
You're not missing much.
I played it since then, and it was all right. But I remember I was so excited for this demo, and I put it in, and it was just impossible. I was like, oh,
really?
Oh my god, what? This game is horrible. But I was like determined to stick with it, and after about 45 minutes of getting shot up instantly, it just sort of clicked with me, and And that is that.
I don't think it ever clicked with me. I recall returning the disc to him very quickly. I don't think I got beyond that VR simulation thing.
And that was like the first game I could remember that had incredible voice acting. I mean, I look back on it now, and it's really wordy and it's really cheesy. But back then, I was like, "This is amazing. This is Oscar worthy. Who needs movies? I have Metal Gear Solid and the Super Baby method to keep me happy." And for those of you who play Metal Gear Solid, you know what I'm talking about.
Baby method?
Yeah. Liquid Snake goes on a little speech about the Super Baby method.
Right.
You'll have to look it up.
I think from what I remember, I think the plot still sort of holds up.
Well, compared to the sequel, it does.
Oh, yeah. Let's not talk about that.
So does that get us up to about 2000 or so, 2001-ish?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I think so.
So about that time, like I said, I was working at a movie theater, and we had, after we would close the theater, we would sort of find somebody's house on the crew to go sort of hang out. We were all working till midnight or later anyway, so we would sort of like spend the next 3 or 4 hours sort of eating, drinking, goofing around. And one of the employees had a Nintendo 64. We played a lot of GoldenEye, a lot of Perfect Dark, and I became really sort of obsessed with Perfect Dark, so much so that I dropped stuff all the time and broke things. What was that?
Wait, what? Oh, no, sorry, I just dropped my pen here.
It's
like, doesn't sound like Perfect Dark.
So I played a lot of Perfect Dark. I actually went so sort of enthralled with Perfect Dark that I went and bought a Nintendo 64, which was the first game system I think I had ever sort of paid for with my own money. And then you had to buy the little jumper pack to make Perfect Dark work.
So you can play the whole game.
Right, and I had to. I recall having to buy extra controllers so I could have other people come play 4-player with me. I remember sort of friends coming over and having to bring their own controllers so the 4 of us could play split screen. Perfect Dark. I remember having the game guide for that and going through and finding all the little secrets. That was a good time. I remember getting the little snow speeder thing in that and just riding it around the level for hours and hours.
Yes.
Yeah, because the game didn't make you go forward. You could sort of choose to go to the next sort of bit of story at your leisure, or you could just sort of ride around on the snow speeder and explore the land. Yeah, it was a good time. So a little shout out to my buddies Brandon, Pete, and Kyle. There were many, many evenings where we would stay up until the sun came up playing Perfect Dark multiplayer. Go get a bagel and then sleep till noon.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Nice. Yeah, my friends and I all had the GoldenEye gatherings because that was like
who didn't?
the first real console first-person shooter. So yet another brand new genre for consoles, and then hours and hours of split screen.
What, Turok the Dinosaur Hunter doesn't count?
I don't think it does, no.
Turok and Doom, those were sort of like PC things. Those were things like, and this is my memory of it anyways, I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I recall sort of thinking, well, those are games that people who play games on computers play. I don't ever recall having that kind of experience on a system up to that point.
Did Turok have the split screen?
Turok, I think it did. I'm not sure. All I remember is the first one was like just ripped to shreds because you couldn't see like more than 3 feet in front of you. It was like pea soup thick fog. Yeah, but like GoldenEye redefined the first-person shooter on consoles for sure. And I know that I never got into Perfect Dark, but DJ, I'm sure that you have a lot of good things to say about that.
I played that game a lot. My only regret is that for some reason it just didn't take with my friends, so they were all huge GoldenEye fans, but I could never convince them to play Perfect Dark multiplayer, which is better than GoldenEye, by the way.
Oh, I agree. Yes, yeah.
So much better.
Yep. GoldenEye was like a nice appetizer. GoldenEye was sort of like, here's what you can do, and then Perfect Dark was just indulgent of all of that crazy shit. It was just, the matches were sort of endlessly customizable. You could put in bots, sims, right? Turtle sims and meat sims and perfect sims and stuff like that. It was just chaos. It was not.
I live in fear of those dark sims. Like,
oh yeah, they were brutal.
I would like try and 1-on-1 against one dark sim, and he would just like, I'd be looking down this hallway, and he'd like sprint across the hallway. I'd see him for half a second, and he'd shoot me, and I'd be dead. I was just like, oh my god, he's following me. Run away.
And what was the gun in the game that you could see through walls with?
Oh, the Farsight. Yeah.
Farsight.
That was my only chance against that guy.
Right. You could go into sort of the zoom mode on the Farsight, and it would give you sort of like like, what's the word? Sort of like where you could see sort of the heat signatures of the people through walls, and you could snipe them through the walls.
Yeah.
So the objective became sort of get a Farsight, hide somewhere in a deep dark corner, and just snipe away at your friends, much to their frustration. They'd see nobody around, and then you'd be dead. It was a good time.
See, my first experience with Perfect Dark was on the 360 re-release. Did not have a good time with that. Did not age well. See, I don't have any of the nostalgia attached to it like you guys do. It just, after playing games today, it just didn't hold up well. Like, I wanted a bloody map so I could know where to go. I'm trying to play co-op with Courtney, and it's like, we didn't know where to go, so we're like, okay, screw this.
My appreciation.
This is how they did it in the old days.
Right.
Gotta think for yourself.
My appreciation of the 360
no Call of Duty, head to this checkpoint and watch the cutscene.
Re-release was it was totally fueled by nostalgia, because I mean it doesn't necessarily hold up as being, awesome and perfect anymore. I mean, it's impressive, but it was hard to sort of get back into, and it was entirely fueled by, I remember this. I remember how much I loved this. I think if I had gone to it cold like yourself, I don't know if I necessarily would have found it as compelling as I do.
Now, see, a GoldenEye re-release, if it has Baron Samedi and Oddjob, I'm gonna get that.
Got to get that Wii version, apparently.
Does that have Oddjob in it?
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
Really?
Yep.
Anyway, it doesn't matter if it does or not, because he's banned from multiplayer.
House rules.
Cool. That was good times. TJ, any other insights you want to offer into the GoldenEye Perfect Dark era of gaming there?
I think I'm good. I might go play that right after.
Right, exactly. So I think we're going to take a break, right? We're take a few minutes to recompose ourselves here, and we come back. We'll bring our little gaming narratives here into the modern age. So while we're away, enjoy a new installment of Video Game Community Theater.
Video games are art. Here at Video Game Hangover, we respect that art. We welcome you to join us for a little segment we call Video Game Community Theater. A commando. An arm. His wife. What the hell is going on?
Pee, pee, pee.
Intruder alert.
Oh, keep quiet, you little chatterbox. Pee, pee, pee. What did you call me? Pee, pee, pee. That's it. Next stop, the junkyard. Population, you.
A battle ensues, and of course, our hero wins. One level later...
What? An intruder in the factory?
What? A dwarf straddling a huge metal thing.
Thing? No! This is the fabricator! And also, your death, boy!
Come down here and say that to my face. I'll shove this arm so far up,
Silence! I'll pick you apart!
we'll see who picks who apart.
And thus, the soldier and his wife live happily ever after. Thank you for joining us for this installment of Video Game Community Theater. Okay, and we're back. Hope you enjoyed that installment of Video Game Community Theater. And now we're just going to continue to regale you with our tales of our gaming history. So, for me, the first actual system that I purchased with money that I earned 100% from myself with a job that I held for longer than 3 months was the PS2.
It's a lot of conditions.
Yes,
Right,
well,
exactly.
I gotta throw those in there because my parents, they used to own a lot of small businesses and I worked there part-time, so I don't consider those real jobs.
Man, don't call your parents.
It's not...
That entrepreneurial spirit just completely shat on right there.
Well, if the boss is your father, it doesn't count. That's my rule. Doesn't count as a job. So,
Okay. Well,
Bill Gates' son, if you would decide to inherit the company, it's not a real job. But anyways,
Does Bill Gates' kid have to work ever?
Yeah, really, is that a concern?
He's probably too busy playing with his space robot rocket ship or something.
he's too busy playing on his Microsoft Xbox.
There you go.
Listening to his Zune.
Like everyone else. They're listening to this podcast on their Zunes right now. And we thank you for that, listeners. We love you.
Love the Zune.
Love our listeners.
Carry on, Paul.
Yes. So anyway,
Before it gets offensive.
so yeah, the PS2. That's the first system I bought with money that I earned myself. And I think that was, 2001, around Christmas time. So I got Metal Gear Solid 2, which I loved, and I got Final Fantasy X, which ended up being one of my favorite games. It's number 2 top game for myself.
Of all time?
Of all time. Number 2.
Wow.
Final Fantasy X. Love it to this day. And if you ever ask me why, I think it's because of that
laughing scene.
That's right. It's because of the ha 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 scene. That's why it's my favorite game. And then I think shortly after I played through those games, I took a little flyer on a little game you may have heard of it. It's called Grand Theft Auto 3. I don't know. Ever played it?
I played a little of that in college. Yeah. I'll admit it. I think I was sort of infamous for playing it. Maybe. I remember
what a reputation.
Yeah. Well, there was one time, I was just hanging out in my apartment, and one of my roommates was on the phone, and they're like, "Oh, what's going on?" They're like, "Oh, not much. Talking on the phone. DJ's playing that game he's always playing." I was like, "Wait, really? Is that my thing? I guess so." Then
you're not talking to a girl, are you?
You were defined by your amount of time that you spent playing Grand Theft Auto 3.
I had to admit I was kind of into it.
Now, what was your favorite song before you continue? I just need to know on the soundtrack.
In Grand Theft Auto 3?
Yes.
Was it Rush? It was probably one of those awful ones from Scarface, yeah.
Rush. That's mine. We have to put that in the show notes because it's incredible. Sorry.
I think we can spare our listeners.
I did not mean to interrupt, sir.
I don't know if that was going anywhere.
Probably not. So I never got a PS2. I sort of made my choice early in the 2000s, and I picked up an Xbox, one of the original Xboxes. I never played any PS2 games up to that point. The Grand Theft Auto games, 3 and Vice City, right, were PS2 exclusives for a long time. And I think they came out sort of in a double pack for the Xbox sort of later in life. I got that. I played through both of those. Those were good times. I played San Andreas, I think, on the original Xbox as well. No, I was sort of out of sync with a lot of that stuff because I missed it. I never got any of that sort of PS2 love. So I never played any of those Jak and Daxter games or any of the other great platformers that the PS2 was sort of renowned for. Because I had chosen the wrong party, apparently. Well, not necessarily the wrong party. I chose a different party. I certainly played a ton of great games on the Xbox in the 2000s. Some favorites off the top of my head. Psychonauts, to this day, I still love Psychonauts. It's a great game.
You were a Tim Schafer fan.
I am a big Tim Schafer fan. There's a new Double Fine game on PSN today, right? Called Stacking that I want to play real bad. Max Payne 2, both of those were Xbox games. I believe those were on the PS2 as well. Those were great. Those are early Rockstar games.
Max Payne, to me, that will always be a PC game to me with the Kung Fu mod installed. That was fucking badass, man. Somebody modded the game so you could be like Jet Li in the game, and it was just so sweet.
Really?
Yeah, you would run on the walls, kick off them, kick people in the head, and it was time would slow down. You could rotate the camera, and it was just so badass. And you could dodge bullets and stuff by doing cartwheels and flips over guys. I was like, wow.
That sounds pretty awesome. I think that's in my Steam backlog. I have to check out that mod.
It's the only way to play Max Payne.
I've never played it that way. I do recall it was the first game that sort of style was a big deal to me. I remember sort of you could do a quick save and you sort of been standing outside of a door, and you would kick the door down and you would jump into the room, guns blazing kind of thing, and you could lock onto the bullet time. So as you sort of launch your way through the doorway, you're sort of in slow motion. And I would hop in the room, bang, 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 kill some dudes, and I would have to sort of assess in my brain, was that cool enough? And if it wasn't cool
Was
enough,
it up to your standards?
right, if I didn't fly through the room appropriately, if I didn't shoot enough guys, blah, 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 or do enough damage, I would go back to my quick save and bust into the room again. So there were occasions where sort of room entries would take 3 or 4 replays. Just to make sure that I played it as cool as humanly possible. But yeah, the Max Payne games, those were a blast. I had a good time with those.
I think that's how I'm going to get you into to play Monster Hunter finally, Randy. I'll just tell you every time the boss destroys you in 5 minutes, it'll just be like, oh, you weren't stylish enough. You got to do it again. Got to meet the boss's approval.
You know, I am a slave to style, so...
Going to keep that in mind. No.
Cool. So, yeah, other games there. Time Splitters. Time Splitters 1, I think, was a PS2 game, maybe, or a PS1 game. I don't even. It didn't come out for the Xbox. But 2 and 3 were Xbox games, and they were fantastic. I love those games. The dudes
that was the Perfect Dark team, or the Dual Knight team, one of those guys.
Free Radical, I believe they were called ultimately, right?
Right. That's it.
And they also made a game called Second Sight, which I really, really dug a lot. I played that, I think, 3 times on the Xbox. I went through that game quite a bit. You woke up in a test facility. You had psychic powers. It was a good time. It was quite a plot. There was a game called 13 that was all cell shaded.
Oh, David Duchovny?
David Duchovny was the voice of the main character. That was on the Xbox. I love that game. That was fantastic. And the Oddworld games. I love the Oddworld games. I think that ties into that sort of medieval Tim Schafer, creepy horror but fun kind of vibe of in games that I like. And the Oddworld games were perfect for that. Yeah. I'm sort of excited that they're sort of resurrecting Stranger's Wrath to re-release on the HD systems because I think that's definitely one of their more underappreciated games, and that was a good time too. So,
is that one of those HD collections?
I don't know if it's an HD collection. I think it's going to be downloadable. I think it's going to be in the stores, and you can download sort of a remix of Stranger's Wrath in HD.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I've never played an Oddworld game.
Oh, really?
I heard good things about them, but
yeah. I've not played them since this time, so I'm not sure how they've aged, but we'll find out, I guess, when Stranger's Wrath comes out. And then the first game I ever played online was on the Xbox, was Unreal Championship.
Monster kill.
Right.
Had to go there. Sorry.
Yes, that Unreal.
Gunslinger. But yeah, the summer... Xbox didn't launch with Xbox Live. It was added like a year and a half later. And you had to sort of get a disc and put a thing on your system and blah, blah, blah. And then you had to tie it into your home internet. And it was just crazy how complicated it was. But when I finally got online, Unreal Championship was the game to play. And I spent most of summer 2002 playing that game like a madman. That was a good time.
DJ, which one was it that we lived in for a few months?
Yeah, so I actually... I've been a long time Mac user in high school, and I built a PC in 2004 to play Unreal Tournament 2004 because I was a fanatic of 2000 or 1999, whichever it was. But yeah, I played. I guess there was a LAN party at school, and I played the demo, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's back! Unreal is back!"
Oh, so good.
Yeah, but that game was amazing.
It was like DJ. A buddy of ours and we would play against bots, and it was still like the best time.
Yeah, we didn't even take it online. We just played against bots. And it was a blast.
Incredible. And some of the skins we would use were just hilarious. Like, I'm a big Transformers fan, as I talked about. And I would always play as either Megatron or Optimus Prime. It was just freaking hilarious, and I was always the driver in the Jeep. That was always funny. And anytime you play games online with me, I like to drive and I like to honk the damn horn.
I think my favorite player model that I used was a giant fudgesicle. Like it didn't even have any arms or legs; it was just a fudgesicle. But that was fantastic.
That was like pure indulgent gaming for me. Loved it.
I've never played an Unreal game on a PC. I know.
Oh no, that's on Steam.
Yeah. It's 100 people who just went, "What?"
I turned my nose up at you, sir.
Right, exactly. But no, I had a great time playing Unreal on the Xbox, and then UT3 on the PS3 was a good time too. I played a lot of that. Yeah. I mean, did you guys ever own an Xbox, or were you guys strictly PS1? Oh, did you?
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've owned almost every gaming system you can think of, except for like. Yeah, but the sad thing is, I think I lost like everything when I moved in like 2000. It sucks. I think I must have lost about $3,000 worth of games and hardware.
Ugh. Lost where?
Did you lost them? You misplaced them? You drove the moving van into a ravine?
It was a rushed move because our house was being foreclosed, and
no.
I don't. Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, should we not go there?
It's up to you.
It was rough because what had happened is my cousins owned a video store and they sold it off, so they gave me every game they had, and that is how all of a sudden I had 300 games.
Jackpot.
Yeah, that was jackpot, and I lost all that stuff. Somehow in the move we had misplaced a bunch of boxes, and it was all my gaming stuff. My Saturn gone. I did not have a turbo graphics. You can hear the pain in my voice as I recollect this. I did lose my Dreamcast and all its games, but I got them back. A friend of mine gave me his Dreamcast when he moved back to Mexico, so that was pretty solid of him to do. What the hell else did I lose? All my NES games, most of my Super Nintendo games, all my original copies of my favorite Super Nintendo RPGs, the holy trinity of RPGs, the Final Fantasy III that I paid $1 bazillion for, Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, lost all 3 of those. That probably hurt the most, losing my original copies of those, because I worshipped those games. That sucked. Yeah, that wasn't fun.
Didn't mean to take the lid off of that painful moment for you there, Paul. That's
Please give me a moment to collect myself.
Paul's going to collect himself, and I guess we'll move into sort of the current generation of gaming, into the HD gen of games. Yeah, I mean, sort of, because I had only sort of gotten into Xbox in the previous generation, I sort of naturally gravitated into buying an Xbox 360 first. I think most of my motivation was my friend Brendan saying, "You should buy this." And so I did. We played.
Was he pushing any specific game on you, or just
it had to be a Halo. I'm sure it was Halo 2, probably.
Oh, no.
He loves him some Halo games. I played.
You know what game I picked up yesterday?
No, what?
Halo 3.
Oh,
nice.
Well, cool.
I think even hardcore Halo fans universally agree that Halo 2 was a misstep. I've tried twice to get through the campaign, and I end up getting bored every single time.
Yeah.
I mean, it got to the point where my friend RJ and we were playing the game, and we had to amuse ourselves by throwing ourselves off the highest cliff possible. And we ended up amusing ourselves for 15 minutes doing that, and then we never played it again. Oh, no, wait, sorry. Then we tried it again last year when he came to visit me, and we couldn't even get past the 3rd level. Ugh. I'm sorry, Halo fans. I don't mean to bash, but...
I like the... Yeah, Halo Online obviously is its own sort of special breed of hell, and I'm just not good enough to hang out with those big boys. But
I thought you were going to say it's awesome, and that's what makes the game worth having.
No,
okay.
I really like the campaigns in those games. I really like sort of the narrative and the characters. So I've played the campaigns on all of those except for Reach. I've never played that one, but I like the sort of the universe of those games. But
I thought the story in the first one was took me by surprise. It was pretty good.
Oh yeah, it was great. But Brandon was also a big advocate of the Gears of War games, which I played through co-op 1 and 2 with him. Those are good games. I like those too. I'm looking forward to 3. I may be in the minority in this group on that, but
no, not at all.
Yeah, and I think I mean, PS3 was off to sort of a slow start anyways, and I really sort of, PlayStation was always sort of that other system for me. But I kept hearing about this sort of Uncharted Drake's Fortune game, and it looked exactly like what I would wanted to play in a game, a little bit of platforming, a little bit of shooting. I thought I could have fun with that. So the week that came out, I bought a PS3 and a copy of Uncharted, and have never looked back.
Nice.
I'm a big fan of my PS3. I'm a big fan of Uncharted. Those are... both of those games, Uncharted 1 and 2, are fantastic. So much good fun stuff to have going on in there.
See, when I think the modern HD era, my mind immediately makes the connection to the Nintendo Wii, and that's why that's what I got first.
Oh, really? That's an interesting story.
That's the first modern console of the modern era that I got, the Wii. But of course, 2 months later, I got PS3 with GTA 4. And that led me to joining Cheap Ass Gamer, which we can talk about in a second. And then I got the 360 for my birthday in September, and I got a little game called Mass Effect, and for that, the rest is history.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, my Wii is mostly untouched. I believe I've completed 2 games ever.
Oh,
on
sorry,
that game.
That's going in
Oh,
the excerpt.
yes, sorry. I can't believe I just said that out loud. My Wii is mostly untouched. Ho ho. But anyways, I have no way to fix that at all. So yes, enjoy, yuck it up.
Well, don't feel bad. We were talking about boners for like 10 minutes, so.
It's the bonerific episode of Video Game Hangover. Yeah, so no, I've not really played much on the Wii. There's not a lot on there that sort of calls out to me. It's mostly sort of the blue light that pops on, and I don't know why, so I unplug it.
Yeah, my Wii has turned into my $350 scale.
Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah. Well, it also means I own a Wii Fit, so that's even rougher.
So DJ, you must have bought a PS3 before?
I got a Wii
Did you really?
at launch, actually. First system I've never bought one at launch before. But I didn't have a PS3 or anything. But I played a ton of like Excite Truck. That game was fantastic, and Resident Evil 4 also very good. So I don't know. I enjoy the Wii. I think it's I enjoyed my time with it. But then, I guess about 6 months later, I got the PS3, and that's sort of a new level of console for me because I never had one that went online before. Are we all still here? It got very quiet.
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm
just
listening with rapt attention.
That's right. I'm listening intently.
I didn't know I had that effect over people.
You have the voice of a siren, my
Your
friend.
voice is like an ocarina.
I didn't know ocarinas had that effect.
But like the PS3, I mean, that's what got this group together.
That's true.
Basically, yeah.
I believe
Thanks, Sony.
Sony Entertainment America bringing people together.
Thanks,
Although,
Jack.
I do have to add this little caveat, though. DJ and I have known each other since 1997. So when I say this group, I mean DJ and I plus Randy.
Right, I'm the late arrival to this trio. So, GTA 4 I think was I was playing that
GTA night.
Yeah, GTA night Wednesdays.
GTA Wednesdays.
for like Jesus, 14, 15 months, wasn't it?
Good times.
So, it was really just sort of stumbled into the forum on Cheap Ass Gamer looking for other people to sort of play the first GTA multiplayer component with, and ended up connecting with DJ and a bunch of other dudes from the Cheap Ass Gamer, and I think DJ, you sort of invited Paul to play along, right?
Yeah, DJ,
so you bought a...
Go ahead.
You bought a PS3 just to play this game, right?
Yeah, what happened is I had quit my job, and then...
That's always a good start.
No, listen, there's a happy ending. Come on. Let me get there. Jeez. So I quit my job, and I found myself under a bridge. No, I'd quit my job, and I went to work at my parents' bakery for a few months, and then what had happened is the person who actually was the reason why I quit my job was fired, and I was able to do her job with my eyes closed, and she was hanging my old boss over a barrel. So what had happened is he called me up one day. He's like, "Yo, I'm not gonna say her name. She was fired. I had to let her go. Well, I guess she's not really so innocent, so I can't say her name. But anyways,
Just leave it out.
yeah. So anyway, she got fired, and my boss was like, "Look, it's end of month. We need you to come in and help us do a lot of the end of month paperwork and reports and whatnot." And I'm like, "Okay, fine, but I have to charge you a premium." So he ended up paying me like this outrageous fee for 3 days of work, and I'm like, "I know what I'm gonna do with this cash." I was so jealous of DJ and his PS3, so I'm like, "Dude, I am getting a PS3, and I am getting GTA 4, and I will have nobody to play with." And then he's like, "Well, wait, I know these people on this website." And I'm like, "What the hell is this website?" And then he said,
Oh, did I actually tell you the website? You weren't just stalking me online.
"No, you told me."
No. I guess Randy and I we hang out on cheapassgamer.com because you can get all the latest deals on video games. Giving you a plug there, CheapED.
Right.
You can thank me later.
He needs all the free press he can get.
I know. But no, we got a little good GTA gaming group going.
Right.
Before that, I had played Warhawk, another PSC online game with some of the same guys. But yeah, they sort of migrated over to GTA 4.
I don't think I did. I didn't do Warhawk with you guys, but we did some Unreal Tournament 3 as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Burnout Night. Were you part of Burnout Night?
I missed Burnout Night.
Yeah, that was the first sort of experiment I had ever had with sort of routinely playing online with the same bunch of guys over and over.
Yeah, I think Warhawk was the first console game I really played online. if you don't count, I think I played maybe an hour or two of Metal Gear Solid 3 online on the PS2. That was kind of rough. But yeah, and since GTA Fortnite, we sort of migrated over to Red Faction and Guerrilla.
Right.
And we just played that last week. So it's,
we still
so
play
it's
to this
kind
day.
of a long-lived group here.
Right. Yeah, that's well, it's just 3.5 years of gaming history there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is 3. Wow.
That's nuts. And then we decided to do a podcast because we clearly don't get nearly enough time with each other.
Right, exactly.
Well, no, I don't know about you guys.
Cool. Is that us? I think that brings us up to today, right? Does that sort of get us current?
Bring us up to right now.
Right.
Now we're all doing a podcast. What are you guys doing later?
I'll be hanging out on PSN,
I'm going to bed because I'm tired.
trolling for guys to play games with.
Right. Hoping your Wii gets touched.
Oh, great.
So
Well, you gotta like that waggle. And done.
Yes, and scene. So you guys want to wrap this up? Anything else you want to throw out there?
I think those people who have stuck with us long enough, like through this episode, I think they know enough details about us. So yeah, maybe we should wrap up.
Right.
And we do love you, listeners. We do.
We do. We're grateful. We're grateful for your loyalty. Help us get the word out. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. If you're looking for show notes or occasional musings from Paul, DJ, and I, or want to talk about this week's show, just hit up our website at videogamehangover.com. What's your earliest gaming memory? Visit the site and share. Best answers go into next episode. Also, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. DJ Paul and I are on Twitter as well. You can find our links on the website. We'd love to get your reviews on iTunes and the Zune Marketplace. Lastly, the VGH Facebook page is up. There's not much going on there just yet, but we promise to use it for good, not for evil. Just search for Video Game Hangover on Facebook, click on the like button, and recommend us to your friends. Thanks for nursing this video game hangover with us. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Have a good night.
Right.
Good night. The intro and outro music from this week's episode of Video Game Hangover is from Eric Skiff's album Resistor Anthems. You can download a free copy of it on Eric's website, glitchnyc.com/music. If you make awesome video game-inspired music and would like to have it featured in our podcast, get in touch with us at contact@vghangover.com.